Chapter 5. The light is gone. The spacious, brightly lit conference room still carried the fresh scent of newly installed leather from the recent renovations. Xiao, these are the few promising projects selected by our team after the initial evaluation round. They align with Pinfeng Venture Capital strategic development direction and show real market potential. Have a look. If there are no issues, I'll instruct the team to move forward with issuing letters of intent and starting the due diligence process. A few thick business proposals were slid toward Fanshawe. The old man who had just spoken added kindly, "The materials are rather dense and cumbersome. If you don't have the patience to read through them, you can just sign off directly." Fanshawe sat beside the old man, eyes lowered slightly, the stray strands of hair falling over his brow, casting a dapple shadow in his gaze. He let out a faint chuckle, soft and pleasant, the sound flowing gently through the office and fading at just the right moment. When he slowly lifted his head again, the vague murkiness from before had vanished, replaced by a gentle warmth in his eyes. His voice, low, smooth, and effortlessly magnetic, carried a note of suggestion. "Vice President Shu, let's stick to job titles during working hours. Otherwise, it might cause confusion among the staff." The old man, addressed as Vice President Shu, furrowed his brow slightly, but the next second he burst out in hearty laughter, like an elder doting on the younger generation, indulging him in all things. "Then we'll do as Xiao says. Oh no, as President Fan says." He nudged the documents requiring a signature further across the table. "President Fan, these documents?" Fan Xiao gave a look of gratitude but didn't even glance at the documents. Instead, his gaze swept slowly over every person in the room one by one. Finally, he asked, "Who is in charge of the administration department?" After a moment of awkward silence, a man in his 30s stood up from a seat at the far end of the table, somewhat nervous as he spoke. "President Fan, I'm the head of administration department. I'd like to ask you a question." Fan Xiao smiled, though the expression didn't quite reach his eyes. "When holding a formal meeting for department heads and above, is it standard practice in this country to place the general manager's seat alongside the regular employees' seats?" The administrative director stole a quick glance at the old man beside Fanshawe, then pressed his lips together before replying stiffly, "This has always been the company's seating arrangement." "Always?" Fanshawe arched a brow. "As far as I am aware, this should be our company's first formal regular meeting, and you have only been in this position for, what, 2 months?" The recorder's fingers froze on the keyboard and the room sank into complete silence. Seeing no one step forward in support, the head of the administration department broke into a thin layer of sweat on his back. He had no choice but to change his tune. "That was my oversight this time. I'll be sure to adjust the seating arrangement according to President Fan's requirements." Fan's smile returned, light and almost careless. "It's not that serious. I've just returned to my home country. There is a lot I still need to learn. Thank you for your guidance. Please sit down." That single sentence, more than any direct reprimand, sent a chill down the spine. Everyone instinctively softened their breathing, retracted their gazes, and fixed their attention inward. No one dared harbor thoughts of watching the show unfold anymore. As for these documents, Fanshawe finally turned to the actual business at hand. "I'll go through them carefully. I can't let Vice President Shu, at his age, continue wearing himself out." He stood up, bringing to an end the first formal regular meeting, one that had lasted less than 5 minutes. "That'll be all for today's meeting. Director of Investments, please send these project proposals to my office later. Oh, and do include the ones that didn't get selected. I'll flip through them when I'm bored. Might help brush up on my Chinese character foundation." With that, the tall man turned and left the conference room first, never seeing the flicker of coldness that passed through the old man's eyes beside him. Fanshawe's office faced west, defying the traditional Chinese preference of having a boss sit north and facing south. In the middle of the day, heavy blackout curtains were drawn across the windows, and only a single lamp was lit inside the room. On the desk lay two thick stacks of proposals, one pile of those that had passed the preliminary review, while the other contained those that had been eliminated. His long, well-defined fingers bypassed the approved projects and picked up a proposal from the rejected pile. After flipping through a few pages, Fang Xiao's gaze paused under the dim yellow light. He lifted the newly chosen proposal closer to his eyes. On the cover were not just the project title but also the name and logo of the submitting company. After a brief pause and thought, Fang Xiao reached for the right-hand drawer of his desk. He rummaged briefly through its contents and pulled out a business card, holding it between two fingers before placing it gently atop the proposal. The words printed on the card matched those on the document. Bohai Pharmaceutical Co. Limited. The thin curve of his lips shaped the words softly before the corners tilted upward in sudden amusement. I nearly forgot about you, and yet here you are, coming to find me again. He placed the yet unread proposal into the other stack. The business card, however, he crumpled into a ball and tossed it into the trash. One could faintly make out a single character, U, on it. When Yu Shulang received Fan Xiao's call, he had been gathering his things, ready to leave work. The ringtone had already been going for a while. Holding the phone, Yu Shulang ran through 3 to 5 possible reasons a man like him might be calling, before finally sliding his thumb over the green icon. Kakun Ka, Mr. Yu. After 2 months of silence, that deep, magnetic voice, tinged with a soft, nasal lilt, entered Yu Shulang's ear once again. It instantly conjured up the delicate haze of root-scented smoke that permeated in the air, and the gentle smile on the man's face when he struck a match. Yu Shulang suddenly felt his own occupational habits were incurable. He had, just moments ago, actually been contemplating how best to handle whatever request Fan Xiao might make in this call. Hello, Mr. Fan, he replied, with an easygoing tone of his own. What made you think of me to call me? A helpless chuckle came from the other end of the line. What can I say? I'm lost. Then, with a tone like that of a lover feigning grievance, he added, and in this entire city, you're the only friend I've got, Mr. Yu. Holding the phone slightly away from his ear, Yu Shilang thought to himself that perhaps he hadn't been wrong. When answering a call from this man, one did indeed need to be mentally prepared for anything, including the innate warmth and tenderness carried in Thai accented speech. By the time he saw Fan Xiao, nearly an hour had passed. Yu Shulang pulled up alongside a dirt road, rolled down his window, leaned halfway out, and called out to the man leaning casually against a luxury car nearby with a smile. How did you manage to get yourself stranded here? The man shrugged in a very Western style. I'm not even sure. I was just following the GPS, but somehow I ended up at a dead end. After circling around for a while, I ended up here. Yu Shulang pushed open the car door and stepped out. The gravel crunched beneath the thin soles of his leather shoes. As he approached Fan Xiao, he noticed that despite it being the sweltering heat of July, he was still wearing a trench coat. Though his figure was tall and well proportioned, the outfit nonetheless struck him as odd. Are you cold? He asked. The hanging folds of the trench coat shifted as Fan Xiao pulled both sides of the fabric tightly around himself. Having stayed in tropical countries for too long, I can't handle the chill here in the mornings and evenings. Yu Shulang nodded, fishing out a cigarette from his pocket. The hour-long drive had stirred his craving for cigarettes, but he had never been in the habit of smoking inside his car. Want one? He offered. When Fan Xiao shook his head, Yu Shulang clamped the cigarette between his teeth and asked casually, That time at the airport, were you lost then too? Fan Xiao paused for a moment before responding with a smile. Yes, I've always had a poor sense of direction. I get lost all the time. It was the same when I was in Thailand. With the cigarette still between his teeth, Yu Shulang raised a brow, thinking to himself, given the size of Thailand, it actually requires some skill to get lost there. The evening breeze swept across the open field, carrying with it the fresh scent of grass and trees toward the two of them. Tall grass and leafy branches rustled in the wind, and the drifting clouds at the horizon were tinged with the faint blush of dusk. Actually, Fan Xiao said, leaning his full weight against the car, his right hand resting lightly at the back of his neck as he stretched with lazy grace. Getting lost can sometimes be a rather interesting thing. You get to see all sorts of different things. He jerked his chin toward a nearby tall tree. See that? There's a bird's nest there. While I was waiting for you just now, I saw a fledgling. Its feathers hadn't even fully grown in yet, fall out of the nest. At first, Yu Shulang listened with mild interest, his gaze sweeping through the dense foliage. But by the time Fan Shao finished speaking, his fingers holding the cigarette had paused slightly, and his eyes shifted from the branches to the man who was speaking. There was nothing inherently wrong in the way Fan Shao described what had happened. He had merely stated the facts. It wasn't something anyone could fault. A man showing no sympathy toward a baby bird's fall wasn't necessarily cold-blooded. But what was strange was the calmness in Fanshao's tone, even laced with a hint of envy, and that stirred in Yushulang a feeling that he could not quite name. Fanshao's gaze remained fixed on the tree. Do you think it fell because it was careless? Have you ever heard what they say in the animal world? Leaning side by side against the car, Yushulang exhaled a stream of smoke and asked, and what do they say in animal world? When a baby bird falls from the nest, there is a 90% chance it was pushed out by its siblings while they were fighting for food, or perhaps its parents simply favor the others more, unwilling to waste their hard-earned food they have brought back on it. There was a strange gleam flickering in Fan Xiao's eyes, but when he turned to look at Yu Shulang, it vanished as quickly as it had come. What do you think it was in this case? Not wishing to linger on this topic, Yu Shulang looked instead at the clouds, their colors fading with the evening light. Let's go. We still have a long way to drive back. You're not going to save it? That fledgling probably isn't dead yet. Fanshu asked suddenly. This time, Yu Shulang was certain he hadn't imagined it. The scrutiny and chill in Fanshao's case were real. He asked slowly, how would I save it? Put it back in the nest? What then? Are you saying it won't be pushed out again? Fan Zhao leaned down until he was eye level with Yu Shilang, his tone carrying a chilling undertone. You already know, even if the fledgling is returned to the nest, it likely won't escape its fate. Then why did you save that child back then? Do you really think that saving him means he'll never again be tormented by illness? That he'll be healthy? The cigarette in his fingers had burnt nearly to the filter, searing his skin, yet he didn't even notice. Staring at the man so close to him, he felt an oppression unlike anything he had ever experienced. This man, whose features had once been gentle and smile warm, now carried a gaze as cold as the sea surface on a frigid winter night. Beneath that fathomless stillness lurked waves poised to break in a violent storm. You still have to give life a chance to survive, don't you? Yu Shulong stared back, firm and unwavering, especially when I'm right there beside him. To have the power to save and still choose not to, that's not benevolence. That's a cruelty that destroys one's own conscience and the moral awareness of society. The great Tao gives birth to 50 paths, yet heaven operates with 49. The heavenly Tao is missing one, leaving one path to survival. Is that what you are trying to say? Light as air, the words seemed to shatter the cold, sharp look in Fanshawe's eyes, like glass struck and splintering apart. In its place returned the gentle warmth from before. Smiling, he said, it's a little embarrassing to say this now, but I still want to tell you, my company paid for that child's medical expenses. He should be able to grow up healthy. After saying that, he lowered himself into the crouch, looking up at Yu Shulang from a very close distance. So, thank you, Mr. Yu. Thank you for your decisiveness and courage that day. You were the one who gave him that one sliver of survival. He was too close. Yu Shulang could feel the warm breath from Fan Xiao's mouth and nose brushing against his own skin. He stared blankly at the man before him, his heart clenched tight by some immense invisible force, then abruptly released. And even in the face of such good news, his first reaction was in joy. This man before him looked as gentle and flawless as jade, as if carved from kindness, yet always left him with a sense of unfathomable mystery as though nothing about him could be fully grasped. Let's go, I'm starving, Fangio said lightly to the silent Yu Shulang. Allow me to treat Mr. Yu to dinner tonight as a token of my gratitude. Yu Shulang finally snapped out of it. Suppressing the turmoil in his heart, he crushed the cigarette butt in his palm and said calmly, I still have work tonight. Let's do it another day. Work? Is it about the progress of the new project? How do you know? The last glow of the setting sun finally dissipated. The narrow strip of light at the edge of the sky was swallowed up completely by the darkness. End of chapter 5. Chapter 6. Can I call you Shulang? Not long after that day, Yu Shulang met Fang Xiao again. Under the brilliant July sunlight, the subtle sheen of his suit couldn't contain its understated elegance, fine threads catching the light and casting shimmering reflections as the tall man walked forward with unhurried composure. Because of the distance, Yu Shulang couldn't make out his expression. Instead, that blurry features only served to enhance the aura around him. His long legs, encast in the light, smooth fabric of tailored trousers, outlined strong, sculpted muscle with every stride. Each overlapping step exuded solid confidence and carried an overwhelming sense of pressure, commanding and imperious. But Yu Shulang knew without a doubt that the man's face must be wearing that flawlessly warm and gentle smile. Sure enough, when Fan Xiao approached, the oppressive aura around him dissolved into an approachable calm, like a warm breeze softening the sharpest edge. Yu Shulang, always attuned to details, even caught the faint sound of the factory director beside him quietly releasing a held breath. Today was the project consultation meeting between Pinfeng Venture Capital and Bohai Pharmaceutical. This was an important step for the venture capital company in reviewing and researching investment projects. So naturally, as the hopeful recipient of funding, Bohai Pharmaceutical had taken the matter with utmost seriousness. The executive team had been waiting respectfully at the company entrance a full half hour in advance. When both parties finally met, there was, as expected, a flurry of polite enthusiasm. Fang Xiao was courteous and gracious, though one could still detect a faint, surface level perfunctoriness in his manner. That was until Yu Shulang reached out his hand. Only then did Fang Xiao's expression shift slightly, the smile on his face becoming more genuine and even familiar, like that of an old friend. He teased lightly, Shulang, Director you know full well I have no sense of direction. Couldn't you have come out to guide me? If I had lost my way and delayed a cooperation with your esteemed company, wouldn't Director Liu be holding you responsible for the whole thing? The moment he heard that word Shulang, Yu Shulang, whose hand was still clasped in Fang Xiao's, drew in a sudden breath, mind involuntarily flashing back to that smoky, fire-tinged night just a few days ago. That night, Fang Xiao had followed behind his car, in his luxury car, all the way back into the city without a hitch. The screen of Yu Shulang's phone had barely dimmed before lighting up again, Fan Xiao's name flashing across it. Yu Shulang tapped the speakerphone, and that voice, as clear and refreshing as a night breeze, once again extended an invitation to dinner. Yu Shulang didn't know why, but a flicker of irritation rose in his chest. Perhaps it was the cold, cutting question from earlier, later dismissed by Fan Xiao as a joke. Or perhaps it was that faint, barely concealed sense of control in the man's tone when he had been holding his company's proposal. Yu Shulang's mild temperament was in large part thanks to his upbringing and personal approach to dealing with the world. But to speak plainly, he was not someone with an inherently good temper, nor was he ever one to tolerate being controlled. The car glided forward for a few more kilometers before pulling into a bustling area. Deafening music crashed through the open night air, while the rich aroma of barbecue drifted in on the wind, slipping into their noses and stirring the appetite. Yu Shulang got out of the car, walked to the rear vehicle just like the first time they met, and knocked on the window. This time the window rolled down quickly. He asked, "Is this place okay?" Fanchio hesitated for a second, but then nodded, that same agreeable and unresisting demeanor showing itself again. He replied, "Sure, looks lively here." The summer barbecue festival was one of the city's essential traditions for cooling off during the hotter months. This year, the event had moved from the downtown commercial area to the riverside square, doubling in scale. It was around 8 o'clock in the evening. The festival was at its busiest. In a corner near the edge of the venue, Yu Shulang and Fan Xiao managed to find an empty table. Not exactly clean, but vacant nonetheless. "You don't mind, do you?" Yu Shulang's question was skillfully phrased. Just a few words, yet enough to block the other man from giving any different kind of answer. He dragged a plastic chair over to where Fan Xiao stood, with both hands tucked into the pockets of his trench coat. "You sit. I'll go get something." "We agreed. I'm treating you." Yu Shulang gave his shoulder a light, almost careless pat and replied casually, "Next time." When he returned with skewers of grilled meat, he saw Fan Zhou carefully wiping down the table. His body leaned forward slightly, two fingers pressing a napkin against the surface like he was carrying out some precise and extremely important task. If Yu Shulang, as the office director, couldn't detect Fan Zhou had a mild case of mysophobia, it would mean he had wasted all these years. He had always been gentle and inoffensive in his interactions, adept at creating a comfortable environment for those in his presence. But that did not apply when he was suppressing irritation. Placing the food on the long table, Yu Shulang smiled. "Drink a little, then I'll call a driver." Fanchio glanced at the chilled beer bottles in his hand, beads of condensation clinging to the glass buttoned object. The conversation between the two meandered aimlessly, flowing from the flowerboats on the Mekong River to the disappointing state of the royal family, from migratory birds returning over the river to techniques in surfing. Fanchio ate very little, and even when he did, it was never the first piece of meat on the skewer. Instead, he would tear off a few pieces from the middle and chew them slowly, without much concern for table manners. As the night deepened, the river breeze grew colder. Some of the elderly and children had already put on jackets. Fanshawe pulled his coat tighter around him, and the ice-cold beer in his hand was sipped in tiny, measured mouthfuls. Yu Shulang let out a soft sigh, suddenly feeling as if he were being utterly ridiculous. To think he had actually gotten worked up over something that had nothing to do with benefit or loss. It was like he had stepped backward in time, regressed into an immature version of himself. He shrugged off his suit jacket and draped it over the empty chair beside him, asking casually, "Are you cold? If you don't mind, you can put this on." Fan Zhao's expression went blank for a brief second, then his smile bloomed brighter than ever. He reached for the suit jacket and surprisingly slipped it on beneath his trench coat. Meeting the slight surprise in Yu Shulang's gaze, he said, "With Mr. Yu being so considerate, how could I possibly not accept your kindness?" Yu Shulang's hand holding the skewer froze mid-movement. His thick eyelashes fluttered twice, but he did not respond. He simply turned his attention back to his food. First, he used a napkin to wipe the carbon ash from the tip of the bamboo skewer. Then, with chopsticks, he plucked off the first piece of meat and placed it onto his own plate before passing the skewer to Fan Xiao. His tone was light as he said, "Eat it, young Master Fan." Being mocked so directly, Fan Xiao chuckled quietly to himself. He took the skewer, bit into the meat, and tore off a chunk. With his mouth still half full, he asked, his words muffled, "How did Mr. Yu know that I kind of disliked the piece of meat near the edge of the grill?" Leaning back in his chair, Yu Shulang stretched an arm to grasp the glass of beer on the table. In his other hand, a freshly lit cigarette smoldered, its tendrils of smoke drifting upward, soft and elusive, like the faint, unreadable look in his eyes. He tilted his head toward the dark stretch of river. The lines of his jaw grew sharper in the dim light, and as the smoke left his lips, so did a gently spoken reply. "Just eat. Stop fussing." Fan Zhou's brows twitched slightly. He fell silent for a moment, then downed the rest of his cold beer in a single gulp. From now on, I'll just call you Shulang. And you can stop calling me Mr. Fan all the time. Just call me Fanshaw. After all, we're already so familiar with each other. Yu Shulang slowly turned his head and fixed his gaze on the man sitting across the table. At that moment, he truly wanted to ask Fanshaw how exactly did he define familiar and unfamiliar. But his good upbringing reminded him one does not raise a hand against someone who wears a smiling face. After a few moments of silence, he finally nodded and agreed. All right, Fan Xiao. Using the excuse that his driver would be coming to pick him up, Fan Xiao stood and watched as Yu Shulang's car gradually slid out of view, disappearing from the edge of his sight. Only once the vehicle was fully gone did the handsome smile on his face collapse, as if too tired to keep up the charade. What replaced it was the look of thinly veiled disdain. A soft snort escaped his nasal cavity, light and effortless, but laced with open mockery. Stretching out your claws like a little kitten, I thought at the very least you'd scratch a little. Never expected you to soften up so easily. Honestly, you're far too easy to toy with. Lifting the hem of his trench coat, he bowed his head slightly and breathed into the faint scent, long since dissipated, that belonged to another man. His voice dropped into something low and murmuring. Smells good. Exactly the same as the scent on my sunshine. Like a cat blocking the entrance to a mouse hole, he curled his lips into a smirk. How very abominable. End of chapter 6.